Welcome back to Celtic State of Mind. I'm John Dykes, and this afternoon I'm joined by Laura Bradburn and Kevin McCluskie to look back on what ended up as a convincing 3-0 victory over Ross County. You contrast this post-match reaction bulletin, Laura, to our half-time chat. It was kind of night and day. We were talking about, and a lot of the comments were talking about, Ajeti's first half performance. You wanted to go out and win 3-0 and you wanted a goal from Ajeti. You got both of that. In fact, you got 2 goals from Albion Ajeti. Let's have a wee chat about that first half, Laura. Let's sum it up, the second half rather.
I think like what we said, the once the first goal came, the kind of momentum of the game changed as we expected it to. Yeah, we had that little bit of luck with the deflection for the Carter-Vickers shot, but after that, Ajeti seemed to be taking up better positions in the second half, which was part of the reason why he got the goals. Obviously, the header from the cross from Abada, he was in exactly the right position, but you have to give him credit for the second goal that he scored as well. Although it was off a rebound, it's as much part of a striker's job to be in the right place to catch a rebound as it is to be, finishing off chances the way we would want him to as well. So, yeah, all round a much more positive second half. There are a couple of vital reasons for that. I think was Montgomery and McCarthy both making massive differences when they did come on, which I'm sure we'll get to. But yeah, a lot more positives to come out of the second half than the first half for sure.
Yeah, we spoke a few weeks back about the anticipation of Kyogo, Laura, because we've been very impressed with the fact that, he's just reading these moments and he's reading rebounds from saves, etc. And that's exactly what Ajeti did. At half-time, Kevin, what was your thoughts on Ajeti? He's thrown in. People are saying it's a last-chance saloon for him. He's given this opportunity due to an injury to Kyogo and a lack of match fitness to our new signing, Giacomakis. And it didn't look great at half time, but he seemed to turn around in the second half.
He did, yeah. I've got a lot of sympathy and a lot of time for Ajeti, mainly because I don't think he was given a chance last season at all. I never really seemed to get a sustained run in the team, and kind of became probably a whipping boy for the fans because he didn't hit the ground running. He wasn't scoring goals. We needed someone up front that could do that. I definitely don't think you could have written him off after his first half today because he's totally coming in cold to this game. But I think as it went on, he definitely improved. His movement, as Laura said, it was better in the second half. He was getting in the spaces that we want to see a penalty box striker getting into because I think that's his game. I'm not sure that he's a totally centre forward. He's not really got the movement that Kyogo's got. But I think if the ball's in the box and it's loose, he's the guy that I think it's his game that he'll be there to put those chances away. And both these goals kind of came through that kind of thing today.
There's plenty of individuals I want to discuss, but a couple that have already been mentioned by Laura, we'll go back over them initially. First and foremost, the header that came off the bar was by James McCarthy. Now, this is the third cameo that we've seen of James McCarthy. We've had a few roundups of the transfer window, Laura, where some people were saying the dark horse might be Liam Scales. I suggested, if we can get McCarthy fit, he might be the dark horse simply because he's the type of player that, had we signed him in any of the previous 12 transfer windows, it would almost be like a marquee signing. We'd all been really excited about it. The fact that he's not played a massive amount of football in the last 3 seasons has probably tempered that enthusiasm a wee bit. And I'm not going to get overly ecstatic about another cameo appearance. But I think what you're starting to see with McCarthy, who came on and played, I think it was 13 minutes. He came on for Rogic for 13 minutes. But he's so composed when he's got that ball, isn't he? He was the type of player, he's two touches, he gets the ball from the defence, he starts linking up that play, he transitions it very quickly to attack. He done it a couple of times with Abada. And I don't think I'm getting. I don't think I'm overreacting by saying that as the season goes on, if we can get him match fit, keep him match fit, I think he'll be key this season.
Yeah, I know he wasn't a straight swap for McGregor. I think McGregor came off and Sorrell came on, and I think McCarthy, if I'm not mistaken, was a substitute for Rogic. So he wasn't a straight swap, but the shape changed slightly in the middle, and he was sitting back with Sorrow as well. McGregor, to me, was having one of those games today where every touch was getting away from him a little bit. He looked like he couldn't get his foot on the ball. He couldn't get a hold of the game. He couldn't get control of the game. Like you say, composure was the word that summed up what James McCarthy brought to the team when he came on. He slowed the play down a little bit. He allowed us to just control the game a little bit more and to perhaps, set up a situation whereby the passes and the forward runs and stuff by the players ahead of him were be able to be found better because he had control of the ball. And then obviously, he still does offer something going forward, even at 30 years old, that he is able to, make late runs into the back post like he did, find that pocket of space. And although he didn't put the header away, it was that run and that chance that gave Ajeti his second goal as well. So, and I'm saying that from the point of view of being somebody who I have to admit was not overly enthused by the signing of James McCarthy, partly because I thought we've been linked with him for so long that he was obviously not an Ange signing, and also I was concerned about the injury problems and things like that. But as much as you say, it's just a cameo, if he can do that kind of thing to close out games for the rest of the season, that's as effective a role as you need from somebody like that in the team, and I'd be happy to see him do that plenty more times.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Sometimes it is closing out the game, and when you look at it, Laura, we're 67 minutes in, and it could have been an equaliser. It could have been all so different, because I think Joe Hart has made, talking about anticipation, he's anticipated where the ball's gone there. It was a tremendous save, Kevin.
It was. Sitting watching that, and it's one of those ones that we've seen this movie so many times the other way around. We lose that goal, we miss that chance, and the other team goes down the park and scores the goal. So that was a huge save from Joe Hart in the crucial time. If we lose that goal, 1-1, we weren't as in the ascendancy as we should have been. So I'm not sure that that team would have been able to come back and win the game. We're probably seeing out a 1-1 draw, dropping another 2 points early doors in the season. So I don't think you can underestimate the significance of that save, and then actually going down the park and getting the goal ourselves and being clinical for the first time there for a long time.
No, you're right, because it's these margins. He saves that shot in 67 minutes, 69 minutes, 2 minutes later, and we open the scoring up to 2-0, and that's a completely different complexion. And as Laura says, we then bring on players like McCarthy to close the game down and actually see it out, and we get a third goal. Joe Hart, Laura, you've got that moment that is pivotal in the game, but also you've got his passing. I mean, just in the last couple of minutes there, it was a great cross-field pass that any, midfield player would have been happy with. Brilliant pass. He's given the captain's armband, the third player to have it in the day. And I just think that he has been, you're right, he's a legacy signing. I mean, there was an interview during the week there with Anthony Joseph of Sky Sports talking about the fact that Hart, there was interest in Hart when we signed Barkas. He's part of this dossier of players that most clubs have got. You've got your scouting reports on them. We couldn't do the deal last year. We've done it this year. I think, you take for granted sometimes when you've had a period of time where you're not worried about your goalie. You've got Craig Gordon, you've got Fraser Forster, you go further back, you've got Arthur Boric, and I know he had a blunder or two, but the goalkeeper was never really an issue, Laura. And for the first time in probably a year and a half, I'm thinking we're kind of edging towards that situation again with Joe Hart.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on Joe Hart when he came in were well publicised. I wasn't sure how much of a success he was going to be and what a divide he might be in the dressing room. He seems to have had exactly the opposite effect to the one that I thought he would have. As Kevin said, that shot that he saved was absolutely fantastic, and as you've said there, like, you almost take for granted that a goalie's going to do these things until you have one that doesn't do it. And when we had Barkas in goal, when we had Bain in goal, when we had Hazard in goal, you were never convinced at any point that they were going to come out on top against any striker or any shot that came in. Whereas with Joe Hart, the pendulum slowly swinging the other way, and you're starting to feel actually, he's going to be one of these situations like a Schmeichel in years gone by, or like a Casillas or a Buffon or something like that, where strikers are actually going to be intimidated by the fact he's between the sticks, certainly domestically anyway, and they're going to see him as something hard to get past, and we need that at Celtic Park, because it had become a situation last season where teams thought, we might not get very many chances, but at least if the ones we do get, it's only Barkas between the sticks, or it's only Bain or something, we should be able to put it past them. So, yeah, I've been really encouraged by what he's done, not just with his shot stopping. I think he's improved his distribution somewhat, and I think he's just brought a winning mentality to the team that I think was missing, and he's not apologetic for it whatsoever. He came in, he gets stuck in, he's seen an opportunity here to make an impact, and he's certainly doing that.
Yeah, and you're looking at that performance today, and it's everything that we've not had. I mean, thinking back to that West Ham debacle, one of the goals where Barkas's positioning was schoolboy stuff. He was miles away. I mean, the gap that he left at the near post was astonishing. And then his performance against Midtjylland, and you just knew no matter what we're going to do here, we're not going to get a goalkeeping performance out of this player. And then you look at Joe Hart today. He's passing the ball around, which Ange likes. He is getting the ball in very quickly, Laura, for the ball boys. So he's he's not losing a second. He's got the captain's armband, which shows you how in high esteem he is held in terms of a senior player. And then he does what he's paid to do, and he makes the save when it matters. So that is definitely one thing I don't have big concerns about these days, which is great, because obviously there has been major concerns in the last 18 months about the defence and the goalkeeper. So let's have a wee chat about the man of the match in Carter-Vickers. I mean, he opens the scoring with a speculative effort. He gets the bounce, absolutely brilliant, and it deflects in over the goalie. But overall, his performance, Kevin, was commanding. He does a lot of the kind of defensive stuff that you tend to take for granted, but we've not been doing it well enough, winning headers. He seems very comfortable with the ball at his feet as well, which I'm very impressed with. What was your take on your first showing of Carter-Vickers in the hoops of Celtic, that is?
Yeah, I thought his debut performance today was everything you want from a debut. He was calm and composed in the ball. He won every header. I think every tackle he went for was just pretty solid, did all the simple things. And like you say, the things you want a centre-half to do, he was going out and doing them. And we haven't had someone doing that job for long enough. So I think just having him doing that just brought a calmness along the back line, and it rubbed off on Starfelt, who probably had one of his better performances for us today as well. I think he said that at half-time he looked pretty composed in the ball. His distribution was improved. And I'd say a lot of that must go down to Carter-Vickers. Obviously getting the goal, huge slice of luck in it, but it's the luck that maybe we don't always get. So, it's about time that went our way. But on the whole, really good performance for a debut. And you'd like to think as well, he'll only get better as he settles in.
No, you're right, because I mean he's not been at the club for a long period of time. Many of the players have been on international duty. I often get concerned about throwing a player in under those circumstances. I mean, Starfelt himself was thrown into the game at Tynecastle. He was criticised in some quarters with his performance that night, but I've always kind of said, Laura, that he seems to do the defensive stuff pretty well, Starfelt. It's when he's got the ball at his feet. But if you were to watch today's game, he did seem pretty comfortable, and it must help to have a bit of solidity beside him. We felt before the game, though, Laura, that it was quite harsh on Stephen Welsh. However, if Carter-Vickers plays like that, you can't drop him, can you?
No, and Jim on the Friday Bulletin with us always says players are fine unless you can get somebody better, and if you can get somebody better, you should. And I love Stephen Welsh. I think he's a great young player. I think he has done more than enough to sort of be dismayed at having been left out today. But you can't argue that out of him and Carter-Vickers, on the look of it initially, Carter-Vickers is a better option, so you're going to have to go with him. The other thing is, Ange was never going to drop Starfelt, given that we've only recently spent £4.5 million on him, and he seems to be finding his feet. So, I I feel for Stephen Welsh, but unfortunately that's the nature of professional football, and there's only one thing for him to do if he's that dismayed at being left out of the team. He just needs to keep doing what he's doing in training, and hopefully he'll get his chance again. I think Carter-Vickers will be much more tested than he was today, but again, as I keep saying, you can only play what's put in front of you, and he more than passed the test. Yeah,
and it gives us that that situation that we've not had for a while, Laura, where you just need to look at the Midtjylland game where we're playing Dane Murray and Stephen Welsh. And that's your centre-half partnership. And before that, it was Welsh and Beaton. Now we've got 4, once Julien comes back, 4 centre-halves that, there would be far more confidence in all 4 of them. And as you say, whoever is of the 4, the 2 that are playing the best, they stay in the team. And that really is a luxury. Talking to Beaton, I didn't actually mention this before the game. He must have picked up a knock somewhere along the line because he wasn't even on the bench today, was he? So Beaton, if anyone knows the scenario with near Beaton, because we've also got obviously James A. Forrest missing today, and when he comes back, then he's pushing Abada. But I want to speak about Jota on the left hand side. We spoke long and hard about him during the week. I think in the first half he was very impressive, but he seemed to fade a wee bit in the second half. But in saying that though, Kevin, a lot of the focus was on Abada on the right-hand side, so I'm not too concerned about that.
Yeah, I think you're right in saying that. First half, from what I saw, Jota was really involved a lot. Most of the play was coming down the left-hand side. He had a couple of chances, a couple of cross balls in. Second half again, yeah, he probably did fade a little bit, but it's his first game. He's getting used to life here as well. I'm not actually sure how much football he's played recently before moving, so it could just be a natural tiredness that he was going to drift out the game, and had Taylor not gone off injured, maybe Montgomery would have come on for him in the more advanced role. That may have been the plan with no Forrest on the bench. But also, as you say, Abada stepped up in the second half. He was quiet first half, stepped up in the second half, became a lot more involved. Once their left back got booked, it was natural, I think, to play everything down, or more down the right-hand side, to let him run at the full-back. So, yeah, I'm not overly concerned that he drifted out of the game. Maybe if this becomes a feature of his game in 5-10 games' time, we can worry about it. But not today. And I think he showed enough glimpses to say that he's going to be an exciting player and someone that we're going to enjoy watching.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking during the week, Laura, about that prospect of having a fully fit Kyogo through the middle and Abada and Jota firing on all cylinders left and right. I think we've seen enough, even just in that one game there, that it could be a very exciting prospect for Celtic fans. Yeah, I mean, Celtic have a long and proud history of having those type of players that are wide players who get fans off their seats. It's one of the frustrating reasons why, or one of the reasons I'm so frustrated we've not seen more of Karamoko Dembele. I know injuries played a part in that this season, but we love a player who can provide us with that excitement and that bit of skill, and a little bit of unnecessary, trickery and stuff like that does give you a bit of entertainment. It doesn't always it doesn't always sort of be needed there to get the end product, but if you can combine a bit of that with the end product, then it's something that Celtic fans always love to see. I think with Jota, as both you and Kevin were saying, the focus of the play seemed to switch over to Abada, and he was seeing an awful lot more of the ball. So you can't really say that because Jota was quiet that he was necessarily having a bad game. He didn't particularly do anything wrong when he did have the ball. And like I said in the first half, I think he'll adapt to the team a little bit more and make runs that are more the type of runs that the midfield are looking for. And equally, they'll get used to what he's doing on the ball. But, some of the wee touches he was making, some of the ways he was going past players, a bit more time, getting a bit more settled and a bit more experience in the league, and I think he's going to be certainly one to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. I would second that point now, that it just takes time for him to settle in the team, because there was a few times kind of towards the end of the first half I noticed he was making a run and the pass when Turnbull was going behind him. So Turnbull's looking for a different movement. Jota's looking for things to be more ahead of him. So a couple of more weeks in the training pitch and that gets ironed out. And yeah, I've no worries about him going forward.
No, absolutely. My only concern at the moment, on the playing side, we won't labour everything behind the scenes because I'm sure we'll chat about that as it develops, but on the playing side is the fact that we are still weak in certain areas in terms of depth. We don't have the depth. I mean, it was a fairly weak bench. Before I speak about Montgomery, just a reminder, another iconic Celtic winger who came in as a right winger and moved on to the left wing when we signed Davy Provan was indeed the late Johnny Doyle. And we caught up with Paul McQuaid the other week there to speak about the biography, the long-awaited biography. I think we've been waiting about 10 years for it since its inception, the idea anyway, of the biography of Johnny Doyle. So there's a full interview. I think it's about an hour long, and it will be on a Celtic State of Mind's YouTube channel tomorrow night. So get tuning into that. That's the ACSOM retrospective, the first episode of which was an interview with Mike Galloway. And tomorrow it will be an interview with Paul McQuaid, who gives a tremendous insight into a much loved and much missed Celtic figure in Johnny Doyle. So tune in tomorrow night. Get on the YouTube channel just now. Why not subscribe and stick on the notifications as well so you don't miss that kind of content. And if you do subscribe, you are in line for a prize. And if you heard a clatter earlier on, that's because one of the prizes is just fallen off the wall. So I'm hoping that the frame isn't actually broken because I'll need to get it reframed. I want to talk about Montgomery for a wee bit, but Strangelove the Doctor comes in to say, well done, Celtic. Very professional performance. Yeah, it was. We never panicked, did we, as a team? Delighted for Carter-Vickers on his debut, deserved player of the match, but I have to congratulate Ajeti on both his goals too. And myself, correct score prediction and scorer. Well, you and Laura both. So yeah, big credit to Ajeti. And of course, with the situation coming up on Thursday against Betis, you're not going to be expecting Giacomakis, even if he is fit by that moment in time, I don't think he will be, or anyone else to be replacing Ajeti. So he'll be a certain starter, I would guess, Laura, in our first Europa League group game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be too negative about Thursday, but we're going away from home, and you imagine that his role is going to change significantly compared to what it was today. I think he's going to be required, him and both whoever the wide players are playing up front, to be more of an outball against Betis, certainly in the early part of the match, because that's just the nature of the way things are when you're playing away in Europe. I think we're going to have to batten down the hatches and do the old keep it tight for 20 minutes or whatever the kind of cliche is. So he is going to have a slightly different role, perhaps a role that's more suited to him than the one he was expected to play today. So I don't see things changing going into Thursday. I don't think they're required to. What I do hope is that Giacomakis might be in the position to be on the bench on Thursday and perhaps see out part of the game depending on how the result goes. But yeah, I wouldn't change anything up front going into Thursday, primarily because I think it's going to be a different style of play. I'm just sitting here wishing I'd stuck a fiver on my prediction before the match started now.
Yeah, I know. Every time I get the prediction right, generally I feel the same, Laura. Kevin, when we're looking at the Europa League group games, there is always an excitement around European football. We would have liked for it to be in the Champions League. We simply were nowhere near ready for it, for the qualifiers. We are more ready for these games, but we're coming up against some quality opposition. And later on, we'll be coming up against a side you know loads about. Since we last spoke about Ferencvaros, what update can you give us on them?
Yeah, they played earlier on today in one of the many Budapest derbies against Honvéd. It was an away game at the Bojic and they won it 1-0. It was a goal by Tokmak, who everybody will remember from that goal last year. It wasn't a great game, to be honest with you. They went down to 10 men midway through the first half. And then it was just they managed the game very well, I'll be honest. I'll say it wasn't an exciting game, but they soaked up any pressure that Honvéd put on them, very professional performance, and saw it through 1-0 without ever being in any danger of losing that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Honvéd, that's ringing bells because we played them in the late 80s and I'm sure they beat us 1-0 away from home and we brought them back to Celtic Park and beat them 4-0 I seem to remember Billy Stark and maybe McAvenny scoring. So a wee blast from the past there on Honved. And we will obviously be covering the game again on Thursday night against Betis. Now, when you're looking at the performances of others who have come in, who've played their way into the side, do you think, who maybe a couple of weeks ago might not have started? I mean, I'm thinking the right back position now, there's a nice headache to have because Juranovic had a particularly solid game at right back. I mean, he can play a bit as well. Yeah, you know, that back heel that he had was just sublime. And obviously we've got a decision to make because, you know, we've got, I hope we'll have Tony Ralston coming back at that stage as well. And again, it's great just to have that option, Laura, but when it comes down to it, who do you play if both players are fit on Thursday night?
I think, unfortunately for Tony Ralston, to me, Juranovic looks more like the type of player I would want to have at right back. He looks as if he's got great distribution. He looks as if he probably could handle the atmosphere of an away match in Seville as well as anybody could. I'm not saying he could necessarily do it better than Ralston, but I think as good as Ralston has been this season, Europe will be another step up, and I would like to stick with Juranovic as far as that's concerned. Looking at the left back position, I mean, assuming Taylor's even available after what looks like a recurrence of his shoulder injury, I thought one of the big differences today, and one that I would like to stick with going forward, is Adam Montgomery. I thought he was so dynamic going forward. I thought he was so energetic, and I personally, like I've said it before, Greg Taylor for me leaves a lot to be desired, and I think if you ask me to pick out of the two of them who I would prefer to see in the starting lineup, then I would have to say Montgomery, but then I wanted Laxalt to stay last season, so would I know. Imagine
bringing that up again, Kevin. Just as you were talking about Montgomery, Gigi made a similar point. He offers so much more than Taylor. He must be first choice going forward. I mean, Taylor, the reoccurrence of that shoulder issue that he had, he's got a habit of looking like the most disappointed man on the planet when he's walking off injured. But I think when you look at Juranovic, going back to your previous point, Laura, he looks so comfortable playing in that inverted fullback role. You know, it doesn't matter if he's picking the ball up in the midfield. He's so comfortable with the ball at his feet. Distribution's good. Link-up play is really, really good. And I think it's got to be done at a certain tempo and a certain pace, which I don't think Taylor's there yet. I actually don't think, even though we've praised him, that Starfelt's quite there, you know, the actual pace and the tempo, but he's getting up to speed. So yes, when you're looking at Thursday night, it would be a big shout, but I'm going to say something here. I don't think Montgomery has ever let Celtic down. I mean, he had a few performances last season under very difficult circumstances early on. I know he came in near the end under Kennedy as well. But this season, particularly, Kevin, he looks like a really good prospect. And you know what? He's got a bit of steeliness about him as well. You know, he's not scared to go toe-to-toe on the physical aspect, but he's very silky. I know that a couple of things haven't come off for him, but he's trying. He really is trying the creative side of the game going forward. So I think we've got a really good prospect in Adam Montgomery.
I would totally agree with that. I've looked at him in games when he's been coming on, certainly at the start of the season, and been thinking, I'm not sure. Is he too young? Is he too raw? You know, has he been converted enough into being a fullback to come and play that role? But every game, he just seems to impress me a lot. And my instincts kind of say we should have Taylor as a left back because he's the more defensive-minded player. But the more I watch Montgomery, the more my mind is changing, and he definitely offers a lot more going forward. We're a side that wants to play in the front foot. And he seems to fit what Ange wants for his fullbacks, this inverted fullback type player that will get forward and create things. And yeah, I think he really does look like a player for the future. I don't want to say he's the next Kieran Tierney, but he's got potential to be a very good player for us going forward if we can nurture him in the right way.
Yeah, I mean,
careful, Kevin, careful. You get held to what you say, you know.
I know.
You get held to account.
I've realised what I've just said there, so if we can just edit that bit out later on, that would be fine.
Don't worry, I was calling Turnbull the next McStay about 6 months ago, and I'm still getting held to that. So
this is the beauty of the live broadcast, isn't it? I mean, coming in from Facebook, Ralston will get better, and we'll learn from Juranovic. I mean, you're absolutely right. He's operating at the moment. Prior to Juranovic coming in as the only right back, so I think they'll push each other's game, and Juranovic has to be at his best because we know we've got an able assistant now in Ralston, and I think that's the way that these things flip so quickly in football. We're looking forward to Thursday night. I'm going to ask everybody for a wee favour. There's a link underneath the video, regardless of where you're watching it, be it YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and on that link you can go in and just vote for Celtic State of Mind. As you can see on the right hand side, we had already previously been twice nominated for national awards. We won one of them. We've now been 5 times nominated. We're up for a treble, and a few of us are going to go down to London next month and hopefully bring some of the trophies up. You can play a part in that by voting for a Celtic State of Mind, so please do that. Also, remember to subscribe on YouTube. You'll be in for monthly prizes, signed jerseys, signed frames that I'm going to have to get reframed because one of them's just fallen off the wall and cracked around about my ears during the broadcast. We have been talking about a fairly convincing 3-0 victory over Ross County, which puts Celtic in 5th position after 5 league games. We are 3 points behind the leaders, Rangers, and I'm pretty sure that something will be said of that tomorrow when Hibs face Hearts. That is tomorrow, isn't it, at Tynecastle? Hibs face Hearts. If Hibs win that, then they will certainly be the team on form and the team to beat at the moment. So it's starting to level out. Yes, we've lost 2 games in the first 4, but I'm sure it will level out as the months progress. It's always a pleasure to have Kevin McCluskie and Laura Bradburn on the show. So thank you very much for joining me, and thanks everybody for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind.